Hello, everyone. Welcome back to English Conversation Podcast, the podcast that helps you improve your English in a natural and enjoyable way. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Mike. Hi, Sarah. Hi, everyone listening.
Hey, Mike. How are you doing today?
Really good, thanks. I've been thinking a lot about today's topic, and honestly, it's something I wish someone had explained to me much earlier.
Same. I think a lot of our listeners are going to connect with this one on a very personal level.
Let me guess. It's about that moment when you catch yourself still thinking in your native language, even after years of studying English.
That's the one. Today's episode is all about how your brain processes language and what the science actually says about why that translation habit holds you back.
And more importantly, what you can do to break it.
This isn't just theory. We're going to give you real, practical things you can start today. No special equipment, no paid apps, just changes in how you use your mind throughout the day.
Before we get into it, though, a quick note for our listeners.
Yes, if you find this podcast helpful, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel. It really helps us reach more English learners just like you, and it means we can keep making content to support your journey.
And if you know someone who's studying English right now, share this episode with them. Learning is always better when you're not doing it alone.
100%. Okay, before we dive into the brain science, we have a quick question for all of you. Leave your answer in the comments. Do you prefer the sea or the mountains? That's it. Sea or mountains?
We love reading your answers. It helps us get to know you a little. I'm a mountains person, by the way. The quietness, the fresh air, I find that really restorative.
I'm C, no question. I could sit and watch the waves for hours. All right, let's talk about your brain.
So, Sarah, let me start with a question. When you're mid-conversation in English and someone says something unexpected, what actually happens in your brain first?
Honestly, it depends on the day. If I'm well rested and focused, English just flows. But when I'm tired or nervous, there's this little pause, like my brain needs a moment to switch lanes.
Switching lanes, that's a good way to put it. And that pause is exactly what we're discussing today. For a lot of learners, it comes from the brain going back to the native language first, even when they already know enough English to respond.
So the brain hears English, converts it to the native language to understand it, builds a response in the native language, then translates that back into English before speaking.
4 steps, when really it should just be 2.
Understand and respond.
That's it. And this 4-step loop is what we call translation dependency. The brain has been trained to use the native language as a middleman, and it does this automatically, especially under pressure.
So it's not a sign of weakness or low ability, it's just a habit.
A habit that can absolutely be changed. But to change it, we first need to understand why the brain developed it in the first place.
Think about it this way. When you first learned your native language as a child, you didn't study it, you lived it. You spent years building incredibly deep connections between words and the world around you.
Right.
So the native language is wired in at a very deep, very personal level. Very deep. But when you learn a second language as an adult, those new words don't come with that same richness. At first, they're just labels. So the brain takes a shortcut. It connects the new label to the existing one in the native language rather than connecting it directly to the experience.
So when I hear lonely in English, instead of feeling that sensation immediately, my brain might first reach for the equivalent in my native language, and only then arrive at the emotion.
And that extra step is where the delay comes from. That's the pause. That's the hesitation people feel in conversation.
So the goal is to cut out that middle step entirely.
Build a direct line between the English word and the actual lived concept, the feeling, the image, the experience. No detour to another language. That is the whole shift we're working towards.
And the good news is the brain can do this. It takes time and it takes the right kind of practice, but it absolutely can get there.
Which is what today is all about. Let's get into the strategies.
Okay, strategy 1. I call it English self-narration.
Self-narration. Unpack that for us.
Most people at B1 or B2 level already know a lot of English. The problem isn't really vocabulary or grammar knowledge, it's activation.
Activation.
The words are already stored in your brain. They're just sitting there unused. Think of them like books on a shelf that you bought, put away, and never actually open.
So the knowledge is there, it just hasn't been turned into a habit yet.
Precisely. And here's how self-narration fixes that. Throughout your day, narrate what you're doing in English, either in your head or quietly out loud. I'm making coffee. The kettle is boiling. I think I'll have it black today. Actually, maybe we'll add a little milk.
So even the most ordinary, unremarkable thoughts, run them in English.
Yes, and here's the part that really makes a difference. Don't stop at one way of saying something. Push yourself to express the same idea 2 or 3 different ways.
Can you walk us through a full example?
Sure. You're washing the dishes after dinner. First thought, I'm washing the dishes. Fine, but now go further. I'm cleaning up after dinner. Or I need to get through this before I sit down. Or even, I really don't enjoy this part of the evening, if I'm being honest.
Oh, so it stops being a simple label and starts being actual thinking, with opinions, preferences, mild complaints.
That's the difference. And that's what real language is. It lives in opinions, reactions, observations, not an isolated vocabulary item.
And it's so much more interesting than just repeating words. You're actually having thoughts in English.
Which is the goal. And here's why it works neurologically. Every time you use an English word in a real, meaningful context, not in a drill, but in a genuine moment of experience, you're reinforcing a neural pathway, a direct route in the brain between the word and the world.
And the more you reinforce it, the faster it becomes.
Think of it like a trail through a forest. The first time you walk through, you're pushing through branches, slow, tiring, uncertain. But walk the same route every day, and eventually there's a clear path. Then it becomes the obvious route. You don't even think about it.
And that's what fluency feels like from the inside. You're not choosing words, you're just walking the path.
Well said. And self-narration is one of the fastest ways to create those paths because you're doing it constantly in the middle of real life, not just during study time.
I actually started doing this years ago, and it felt strange at first, like having a little documentary running in my head. But after a few weeks, I noticed that English was just there. When I needed a word, it arrived faster.
Because you'd walked those paths so many times, they become automatic.
That's it, yes. All right, strategy 2. Strategy 2 is about connecting English to your emotions. And I genuinely think this is one of the underrated ideas in language learning, and one of the least talked about.
How do you mean?
Your brain doesn't treat all information equally. When something has a strong emotional charge, joy, frustration, embarrassment, excitement, it gets processed at a deeper level. It stays. It's harder to forget.
Which explains why people can recall song lyrics in a foreign language even when they struggle to hold a basic conversation. The emotion is doing the heavy lifting.
The feeling is what burned those words into the memory. And we can use that same mechanism deliberately.
So how?
Here's the practice. The next time you feel something strong, happiness, irritation, surprise, anxiety, try to name and express that feeling in English first. Not in your native language. In English, in your inner voice.
So you're essentially relocating your emotional life into English.
That's a good way to think about it. If you're frustrated with something, think, "This is so frustrating. I cannot believe this is still happening." If something goes well and you feel pleased, "This worked out better than I expected. I'm genuinely happy about this." If you're nervous before a big moment, "I'm feeling anxious right now. That's okay. I can do this."
You're not just translating thoughts, you're processing real feelings through English.
And when a word or phrase is connected to a real feeling, it sticks in a completely different way. You remember it not just because you saw it in a book, but because you felt something when you used it.
There's actually research behind this. The amygdala, the part of the brain that handles emotion, also plays a role in how strongly memories are formed. When emotion is present during learning, retention improves significantly.
So you're not just practicing language, you're using your brain's memory system more effectively.
Which is why two people can study English for the same number of hours and end up at very different levels. It's not just about time spent, it's about how emotionally engaged you are with the language.
And this is also why watching content you genuinely love, shows, films, podcasts on topics you care about, is so much more valuable than studying things you find boring, even if the grammar level is similar.
Your brain is more awake, more engaged. The language goes deeper.
So the practical takeaway here, stop treating English as a neutral, logical system to be memorized. Start letting it carry your feelings. Bring it into the moments that matter.
That shift alone can change a lot. Okay, strategy 3. Strategy 3 is about the quality of your input, what you listen to, what you read, and crucially, how you choose it.
And I think this is an area where a lot of learners are accidentally working against themselves without realizing.
There are really two common mistakes here, and they're opposite ends of the same problem. The first mistake is staying too comfortable, consuming content that's too easy, things you can follow without any effort.
Your brain isn't being stretched, so it isn't growing. It can feel productive because you understand everything, but you're really just reviewing what you already know.
And the second mistake is jumping too far ahead, putting on a native speed documentary, a fast paced news podcast, a dense academic article, and getting completely overwhelmed within a few minutes.
And feeling like a failure because of it, when the real problem is just a mismatch between the content level and where you currently are.
The ideal zone is what linguists call comprehensible input. It's a term that comes from researcher Stephen Krashen, and the idea has been supported by decades of language acquisition research.
What does it mean in simple terms?
Content that is slightly above your current level. You understand most of it, roughly 70 to 80%, but there are still unfamiliar words, expressions, or structures that push you a little.
So you're stretched, but not snapping.
That's the balance. And here's a quick rule of thumb, the 70% rule. If you're listening to or reading something and you can't understand more than 30% of the words, it's too difficult. Don't push through it out of stubbornness. Find something easier.
Because if you're stopping every other sentence to look things up, you're not experiencing the flow of English. You're doing a translation exercise. And that actually reinforces exactly the habit we're trying to break.
Your brain needs to feel English moving. It needs to experience it as a river, not as a series of individual rocks you have to step on one by one.
A river, not stepping stones. I like that.
And there's something else worth mentioning here, the value of repetition. Not the boring kind where you repeat the same sentence over and over, but spaced re-exposure. Listen to something once today, then come back to it 3 days later, then again a week after that.
Because your brain is in a different state each time you return to it. You've absorbed more since the last time. You notice things you missed before.
First time, you might catch 70%. Second time, 85%. Third time, it feels almost effortless, and that sense of improvement is genuinely motivating.
And this podcast is actually a good example of that. If you've listened to an episode and found it useful, try going back to it. You'll be surprised how much more you pick up this second time around.
So, the key points on input: find the right level, choose content you actually enjoy, and revisit things rather than always chasing something new.
Quality and consistency over novelty. Good. Strategy 4.
Strategy 4: output. And I'd argue this is the one that produces the most visible, fastest change once people actually commit to it.
Output meaning speaking, actually using the English that's been building up in your brain.
And I know this is where a lot of people get stuck.
Very stuck. Why do you think that is?
Fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding strange, fear of being judged or laughed at. These are very real feelings, and I don't want to dismiss them.
They're real, but here's the thing. You genuinely cannot train your brain to speak English without actually speaking. There's no way around it.
It's like riding a bike. You can study balance, read about technique, watch videos, but until you actually get on the bike and start moving,
You'll wobble, you might fall, and that's fine. That's how it works.
so for everyone who doesn't have English-speaking friends nearby or who lives somewhere English isn't used in daily life, start by speaking to yourself, out loud, not just in your head.
There's a specific exercise I really recommend. Once a day, choose any topic. Your morning, something you watched, a problem you're thinking about, anything, and speak about it in English for 2 minutes. Record yourself on your phone.
The recording step is what really activates this exercise.
Because when you speak without recording, you think you sound fairly fluent. Then you listen back and you catch things you were completely unaware of. You're dropping the endings of past tense verbs, or you're speaking so fast that words are blurring into each other, or you've said basically 11 times.
You become your own teacher. And that's incredibly valuable because a teacher who is always available, who knows exactly what you struggle with, is the most effective teacher there is.
Then do it again. Same topic, same 2 minutes, but now you know what to focus on. Try to correct 2 or 3 specific things. Compare the recordings side by side.
You will hear the difference, even within a single session.
2 focused minutes a day will consistently outperform 2 hours of passive study once a week. The brain needs regular, repeated contact with the language to build those new pathways, not occasional large doses.
Think of it like physical fitness. You can't go to the gym once a month and expect to get stronger. The body adapts through consistent, repeated effort.
Language works the same way. And the beautiful thing is, once you build the habit, once speaking in English becomes something you just do, it stops feeling like practice and starts feeling like life.
That's the destination. All right, there are 2 more things I really want to cover before we finish, because I think we'd be doing our listeners a disservice if we skip them.
Mental blocks and plateaus.
Both of them.
Let's talk about mental blocks first, because I think almost every learner has experienced this. You're in a conversation, someone asks you something, and your mind just goes completely blank, like a screen that suddenly turns white.
It happens to everyone, even advanced speakers, even people who are essentially fluent.
So why does it happen?
Mostly anxiety. When you feel under pressure in a job interview, on a first date, during a presentation, your brain goes into a kind of stress mode. And in that mode, it becomes harder to access stored information. Language retrieval slows down. You reach for words and they're not there.
Which then makes you more anxious, which makes retrieval even harder. It becomes a loop.
A self-reinforcing loop. So what breaks it?
A few things. The first, and this sounds almost too simple, but it genuinely works, is to have a small set of filler phrases ready. Phrases you know so well you could say them without thinking.
Like what?
Things like, let me think about that for a moment. Or, that's an interesting question. I want to give you a proper answer. Or, how should I put this? Or even just, give me a second.
And what those phrases do is buy you time without making it obvious you're struggling, because native speakers use them constantly.
All the time. They're not signs of weakness, they're signs of a thoughtful speaker. And while your mouth is saying, let me think about that, your brain has a few extra seconds to find what it needs.
It's like pressing pause without anyone noticing.
The second technique is simplification, and I think this one is really underused.
Say more about that.
Often, when people freeze, it's because they're trying to construct the perfect, complex sentence, and they can't find all the right words at once, so they get stuck and say nothing. But you don't need the perfect sentence, you need a sentence that communicates.
Break the thought down to its simplest form.
For example, let's say you want to express, I'm trying to decide whether to accept a job offer that pays better but requires a much longer commute. That's complicated. If you can't get there right now, say this, I have a new job opportunity. The money is better, but the travel time is much longer. I'm not sure what to do yet.
The meaning is there. All the important information came through.
And often, just getting started, even with simple sentences, gives your brain enough momentum to relax and access more language. Once you're speaking, more words tend to come.
It's like priming a pump. Once the water starts moving, it flows more easily.
And the third thing, which ties back to every strategy we've discussed today, is that mental blocks naturally get less frequent as your pathways get stronger. The more you practice thinking and speaking in English, the more available the language becomes under pressure.
So the strategies we've covered, self-narration, emotional language, daily output, they don't just build fluency for easy conversations. They build resilience for hard ones.
Well put. Okay, plateaus. This one is really important.
Plateaus. This is something every single language learner goes through, and it's one of the most discouraging experiences in the entire learning process.
Describe it for anyone who might not know the term.
A plateau is a period where your progress seems to stop completely. You're still studying, still practicing, but your English doesn't feel like it's getting any better. Conversations feel the same as they did 3 months ago. You're making the same mistakes. Nothing feels different.
And it can last for weeks, sometimes months, which is really hard to stay motivated through.
It's especially difficult because it often comes right after a period of fast, noticeable progress, which makes the plateau feel even worse by comparison.
So, what's actually happening during a plateau?
This is the part people need to hear because it changes how you experience the whole thing. During a plateau, your brain is not standing still. It's consolidating. It's organizing and integrating the language you've absorbed into a more stable, more usable structure.
So the progress is still happening, it's just happening underneath the surface, where you can't see it yet.
Think of building a house. There's a phase where most of the work is happening underground, laying foundations, running pipes, routing wires. From the outside, nothing looks different for weeks, but that invisible work is what makes everything above ground possible.
And then one day, something clicks. You have a conversation and it flows more easily than it ever has before. You find words faster, you understand more. It feels like a sudden breakthrough, but it was actually building the entire time.
So the advice for plateaus is not to panic, not to abandon your methods and start over. Keep your habits consistent, trust what you're doing, and be patient with the process.
I'd also add, pay close attention to small wins during a plateau, because they're still happening. Maybe you understood a joke in English that you wouldn't have caught a few months ago. Maybe you wrote an email without second-guessing every sentence. Maybe you read a full article without looking anything up.
Those are real signs of progress. They don't feel dramatic, but they're significant.
And comparing yourself to where you were 6 months ago rather than to some imagined version of where you should be is a much healthier way to measure. The progress is there. It's sometimes easier to see when you look back rather than forward.
One more thing on this. Be careful about comparing yourself to other learners. Two people can start at the same level, study for exactly the same amount of time, and be at very different places because of their native language, their environment, their daily exposure to English, their learning style.
The only comparison that actually helps is you versus you. Where were you 6 months ago, 3 months ago? That's your measuring stick.
And with that, I think we're ready to bring this home.
We've covered a lot today. Let's pull it all together for everyone.
We started with the science, why the brain defaults to the native language. It's not a flaw, it's a habit built over years. The brain follows the path it knows best.
And the goal is to build a new direct path between English and real experience, cutting out the native language as the middleman.
Strategy 1. English self-narration. Use the ordinary moments of your day to think in English and push yourself to say the same thing in more than one way. You're not just practicing vocabulary, you're building neural pathways.
Strategy 2. Emotional language. Stop treating English as something neutral. Bring it into your feelings. Express your emotions in English first. When the language is tied to real experience, it sticks at a completely different level.
Strategy 3. Input quality. Find content that's slightly above where you are, not too comfortable, not overwhelming. The 70% rule. And revisit things you've already listened to or read, rather than always chasing something new.
Strategy 4. Output. Speak out loud every day. Record yourself. Listen back. Improve 2 or 3 specific things. 2 minutes a day done consistently will move you forward faster than you might expect.
Strategy 5. Manage mental blocks. Have filler phrases ready. Simplify when you need to. Remember that the blocks get smaller as your pathways get stronger.
And finally, be patient with plateaus. Your brain is working even when you can't see the results. The breakthrough is coming. Keep going.
The main thing we want you to take away from today is this. Thinking in English is not a talent that some people are born with and others aren't. It is a skill. It is trained. It is built. And you are building it, whether it feels that way right now or not.
Before we go, if you found today's episode useful, please subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. It genuinely helps us keep growing and keep making content like this for you.
And share it with someone who's on their own English learning journey. One share from you could be the thing that helps someone get past a barrier they've been stuck at for months.
We'd also love to hear from you. Leave a comment below. What is your biggest challenge when it comes to thinking in English? Is it the mental blocks, the plateau, something else entirely? We read every single comment, and your questions are what shape future episodes.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us.
Keep going, be patient with yourself, and remember, progress is happening even when you can't see it. You are doing better than you think.
See you in the next episode.
Bye, everyone.